Okay, what's up everyone? I am back with another episode of me working on my 1951 GMC pickup. And today we are going to be patching the bedsides of this bed, which is actually a little bit later of a Chevy bed, but I couldn't find a GMC one. Anyway, doesn't matter. What does matter is this bed has pretty good bones. This side actually isn't too bad. I can patch these holes no problem. This side, as you can see, is a whole different beast entirely. So what is happening here is we've got this hole is good, bad, 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 bad. You get the idea. This side is not in good shape. So what I'm actually going to do is basically I'm going to kind of cut this all out and replace it with a new piece of metal. That's my new piece of metal. These rounded holes that you see, I am going to be cleaning up both of these holes. This is actually to help me lay out. So they need to stay, but I am going to line them up and set them up and make it a lot nicer. I cut these holes originally when I was first test fitting my bed on my chassis, so that's why they're pretty haggard. But I'm definitely going to clean them up when I'm doing the rust repair. So the first thing I'm actually going to do, I'm not going to worry about even this side at all, but I am going to do some cleanup here. I'm not going to knock off most of the rust because, again, this is all going to be cut out. But what I am going to do is I'm going to take this off on both sides. Eventually, I'm going to take it off here as well. And I'm going to hold that piece up against it, figure out what size it needs to be, where I need to cut it, where I need to break it, and then hopefully tack it back in. I know I'm a little bit low on welding gas, so we'll see if I get this all welded in this video. It might just end up tacked in, and then I might actually just toss that on there to make sure that the fitment and everything is good. But first things first, I have to put the camera on the tripod and get to work cleaning it up so that I can measure up what I need to cut out and what I need to put in. So I'm not going to keep talking too much longer, and we're going to get right to that. All right, so I finished step one of the cleanup. Step one was to remove this piece here, which would have held some of the bedwood from this side, because I am going to end up pretty much cutting out kind of all across here and down. So I want to be able to have as little in the way as possible. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take that piece of metal and I'm probably going to first do a little measurements because I know I need to trim that down a little bit. And then from the other side, I'm going to self-tapper it on so that I can kind of trace where everything needs to be. And then I can bend this break in it and figure out where these holes need to be as well, roughly. so that I can transfer them to the new piece of metal. So I'm gonna grab that, I'm gonna grab my measuring tape, do a couple of measurements, mark some stuff down, cut it. In the next clip, it'll either be me cutting that out or maybe just doing the broken edge on it, so you can see how I can use that table over there to do right angle breaks. So I'll see you in the next cut. I'm gonna move a few things around. This is pretty simple. I'm gonna get a Sharpie. I'm going to draw a line that goes through here, marks the beginning and end and top of where I want this curve to be. And then I'm gonna use something round to draw that out so I can do that nice and neat. But this is basically gonna be where I'm gonna add this metal brake. I'm also going to put dots and drill wherever the mounting holes are not totally roached out, so that I can mount my fender on there and I can figure things out that way. So really that's the next thing I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna draw this all out, I'm gonna put it on the bench, and then we're gonna start working on shaping this piece of metal. Okay, so I have cut this out. I've got that arch out. I used a BMX wheel to get the correct radius. I do have to clean this up. I've also marked where I am going to put my brake and sort of trimmed off the bottom just so it's even everywhere. I've also slit this because I'm going to have to do this brake separately and then weld it back together. What I think I'm going to do to bend this is pretty rudimentary. I'm going to clamp this piece of square stock to this piece, and then I'm just going to hammer it up. That's going to sort of simulate a metal brake. It's going to get as close as I can without really having the correct tools to do this work. Actually, more realistically, I'm probably going to start here first to make sure that everything works as I intend it to. And then if it does work, I will make my way to sort of the longer sections. So I'm going to put the camera on the tripod. We're going to try this out and see what happens. Okay, so that was actually a little bit harder than I expected it to be, but it worked out pretty well. So you can see that I've now got this flange in through here, up here. I got to do a little bit of trimming on this part and this part just where they match up. I want to make sure that it lines up how it's supposed to be. You can see through here and all along there, there are a lot of hammer marks from where I was bending it over, and it is not straight yet. I am not going to worry about straightening it out yet until it is in the truck. I want to make sure that this end and this end line up with what's existing well, and then I might actually have to trim it back a little bit, and then from there I'll go with the hammer and dolly, or the hammer and that piece of flat metal that I had, and clean this up and get everything looking nice and mint. What I wanted to do was get this flange in here so that there's some rigidity at the bottom of this panel. The top is still very floppy, but that's going to weld to the existing bed, and this bottom here, this is all where I've replaced with new metal, so it really needs to be nice and strong and have some strength in the bottom, and that's what I've done here. So I'll smooth this all out and get everything finished once I get this thing lined back up and sort of I know that it's going to fit as a replacement panel. So that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so what I've done now is I have self-tapped this piece into the original metal that is going to eventually get cut away. And I am going to slice a few spots to tack it in and then just keep cutting around until the inner panel can drop off. Everything fits up pretty well. The only thing that I really have to do once everything is sort of in place is I'm gonna have to trim this back. I kind of knew I had to do that. I left a lot of material on it to make it easier to sort of bend over. I'm probably going to work it nice and smooth and flat before I trim that off, just because it's a little bit easier to align it with the hammer with a bit more of that flange. But everything's working out pretty well. I've also marked the holes that are still there, so that when this piece does fall off, I do know where to put some of the fender holes back. Once this is all in, I'm going to use sort of the good spots that I knew about, so here and here, to line up the fender, and then I'll drill the new holes and just make sure that everything fits. I'm going to put the camera back on the tripod. I'm going to start tacking this in and then hopefully get the inner panel on the inside cut out, and we can call this sort of a day. Okay, so everything is nicely tacked in now, and I can move around to cleaning up my edges, push it flush everywhere along the panel, take my time, and get everything nice and flush. If you go from this side, you can see that not quite everything is lined up the way it needs to be, but I am going to keep moving on that. And the next cut, I'll have everything sort of flushed up, and then I will show you how I am going to go about cleaning up this, welding this together, and getting this flange nice for the truck. Okay, so it's another day back out in the garage, and I'm going to pick up where I left off, which is going to be finishing tacking all of this in. So this is going to be a lot of welding, a lot of work. I'm going to bounce around from like this side to that side, upside, downside, all over the place to tack this in without warping this. This is a very long piece. It would be pretty easy to warp, so I definitely don't want to do that. As you can see though, the tacks are going pretty well. The gaps are pretty decent all around. I am going to not so much, well, I'm going to open up that a little bit, and I got a little bit to open up there with the angle grinder, and then the rest I can pretty much just go around and tack at leisure and sort of get this back into shape. I'm going to once again put the camera on a tripod, launch into another time lapse, and basically spend tonight just tacking this in. I don't have a ton of welding gas tonight, and I don't have a lot of time. I got about an hour or so. I'm really just going to chill and just tack this in, put some music on, enjoy myself, and get this zapped in. What's up, I'm back. It's day 4 or 5 of me working on this bedside. And from the last time I shot the video, I was pretty low on welding gas, but I wanted to kind of go around and get this all welded in, hopefully before I ran out of gas. And I was able to achieve that. So I've got it all sort of tacked in. Yep, got to fill a hole there. But everything's kind of tacked in now. There are a couple of pinholes in it. You know, this is the first pass on welding it in. So what I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to knock a bunch of this down, see where I've got pinholes to fill in, and then go back and weld it. Put a couple of the mounting holes in for the fender. I can't do all of them because I actually don't have enough good material in the bedside or the fender quite yet to locate all of them. But once I finish fixing up the fender and get the good metal back in there, I'll be able to line things up and kind of eyeball it between the two. But we will do that next time. What I'm going to do today is I am going to go around and grind these initial welds down, see where I'm at. I did run the welder a little bit hotter, so I should have got good penetration. And these welds aren't too proud, most of them, so it shouldn't take too long to grind down. I'm probably not going to do a time lapse of me grinding this initial set. I'll probably come with the next cut after I've knocked these down, and then maybe do a time lapse of sort of the finishing stuff. I mean, you guys have seen me weld and grind before. I've been doing that for a long time. So that's not super exciting stuff, but I will come back with the next sort of update and show where I'm at. Okay, so I've gone through and I've given this a pretty decent grind. I do have some spots to fix up. This is just sort of preliminary work, getting things ground down and making sure that things lined up okay. Having this here really helped keep this from distorting. I do have a tiny bit of distortion here, but I think that the fender will cover that up. And then I might try and see if I can maybe make this a little bit better with the hammer and dolly. If this is the only spot that is going to be bad after doing this giant panel here, I am a-okay with that. So on the inside of the bed here, the next thing I do have to do is obviously, you know, there's a little bit of work around here, grinding and stuff like that needs to be done to finish this, so this is nice and flush. But we'll worry about that later. First is I am going to connect the flange here and connect the flange here. After I do that, then I am going to go through and hammer this to get it a lot flatter because it is pretty bumpy right now. And then we should be able to call this pretty well done or done enough for this video. I'm not going to be finishing this out all the way for this video, but I do want to get it to a nice spot. Okay, so I am back once again working on this bedside, and today we are kind of going to round things out a little bit. I've got a clip I recorded actually before this video of kind of the outro where I actually do hang a fender on the other side, so you'll see that in a little bit. But before we get there, I need to trim back this flange here. So the last time I went through and I tacked this, welded this, and welded this all together now. So this is all together, and I've actually started trimming this one down a little bit. You can see where I have that little bit of a warp that happened that I am going to try and get out later, but probably not in this video. But anyway, I want to trim this all back so it's even with what was originally there. And you can really see here that I left quite a bit of material on here. I also hammer and dollied this a little bit more to get it a little bit flatter. But the main thing that I want to do is get this flange to look even. When you look from the back into the bed, I don't want this to look too wonky. You'll probably be able to tell that something has gone on because this is going to end up being a lot smoother than this side with the original patina, but that's fine. I'm not really hiding the fact that I did a bunch of work to this bed, but I do want it to look as reasonable as possible, so I'm going to trim this back. And the best way for me to trim this back is going to be with my angle grinder. I'm going to use this piece of flat bar to put it as a sort of a guide. So I'll line it up with the original metal, clamp it down, and then just run my blade along there, and it should be able to get pretty close. I do want to kind of keep, I do want to keep this nice bit here and round this out a little bit, just so it looks a little bit finished and a little bit better than just sort of a straight cut. But I think once I get that done, I'm then going to just sort of clean up everything all around. I'll splice in that video of the other side and this side a little bit, so you see me going back and forth. And then we'll kind of call this a wrap. There is going to be a lot of finishing work left to do. I do want to figure out a way to sort of reinforce this a little bit. Unfortunately, metal has changed over the years, and even though I use the same gauge metal, it is a little bit weaker. So I think this won't be a big problem once I do put sort of a tub in. I might actually put a tub that goes like through here, and that's going to be where my tires are going to tuck into and keep the dirt and stuff from flinging all inside the bed. So when I do that, I might figure out a way to reinforce it a little bit, or maybe I'll think of something else. But anyway, for the scale of repair that I did and sort of my first time doing something this large, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So I'll cut over to the other video, the outro with the fender hung on the other side. You can kind of see how everything's going to look once it's all together. And then we'll go from there. Actually, wait, what am I talking about? Before I cut over to that last outro video, I gotta do some work here. So I'm gonna put this camera on the tripod, and I'm gonna cut this out and zing this out, and then we'll get this nice and straight, and then we'll cut over to that next video. All right, so I did it. This is awesome. Seeing this fender hanging off the side of the bed is a lot of encouragement after all that grinding I was doing and all that work on the inside on the flange. Now, make no mistake, it is not really on there solidly. It's just sort of hanging here. I think only 2 of the bolts are connected right now, but it's on the side of the bed. This is incredible because that was a lot of rust and it could not mount there. And now I've got this sitting here. So I am gonna have to go through and kind of fix all of the rusty spots. Once I pull this back off, I'll show you all the spots I got to fix on this fender, but I've done it. This is the largest panel that I have fixed myself and fabricated myself. So that is pretty cool. And I managed to film it all and actually compile a YouTube video. So that's also cool as well. So what's left is everything else. I've definitely got to go through and metal finish this and clean all of that up, but that will happen in another video, because I'm actually going to wait to finish this out fully until I can get the bed back on the truck and really make sure that I don't need to make any more clearance or any more adjustments before I go through and bodywork it and patina it. But that is where we're at right now. Thank you once again for watching this video. Thank you to everyone who's finally seen this video for the first time, because after this one, I am actually going to start sharing these videos on social media, not just posting them silently on YouTube. Thanks for everyone who watches all the way through. If you have any suggestions, tips, encouragement, do leave me a comment. Give this a like, a share, a subscribe, notifications, all that stuff. I really didn't want to be the guy who was going to say that, but you need to for YouTube. So I'm going to keep saying that. And once again, thank you for watching this video, and I will catch you in the next one.